What do you know about Holland? Flowers, windmills, picturesque canals, cheese, wooden shoes, master paintings from the Golden Age. Yes, we have it all. But let me show you what's really cool about Holland. You call it organic and artisanal. We just call it food. You call it boutique, independent, alternative. We call it the Nine Streets. You call it exercise. We call it a way of life. They still drive cars! Dutch! Oh, yeah. By the way, did you notice I'm speaking English? We all do.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome to Amsterdam.
Ik niet. Jullie noemen hem Van Gogh. Wij zeggen Van Gogh.
Did someone say Van Gogh?
You call it art. We call it the Rijksmuseum.
Dutch! You call it green energy. We call it tradition. You call it... We call it Amsterdam.
Hello everyone. Welcome to all of you here in the room and online. We have quite a few online guests as well to this event on connecting Australia and the Netherlands. Make waste management and circular economy your business. Before I open up and introduce some further speakers, I will want to thank our Dutch consul, Honorary Consul General Richard Mendelsohn for being here, and also a thank you to the makers of this video that was meant to keep you all on your seats, which is from Holland.com. As is custom here in Australia, I would like to start with acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting, and that's the Kulin Nations, and pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging. Right, this event on circular economy and waste management is brought to you by the Netherlands Chamber of Commerce in Australia and Global Victoria and the Global Victoria Trade Alliance. I'm here to represent the NCCA, so the Dutch Chamber for short. And we are doing this as an event, as part of a series of events on trade, promoting trade to the Netherlands and Europe. And the Netherlands is, of course, a gateway to Europe, so it's one of the chambers who partnered with Global Victoria to partner on these events. In our case, it means that we've gone through a number of sectors that are priority to both the Netherlands and Australia. For example, agtech, fintech, and today the circular economy. And this is a really hot topic for all of us. I mean, obviously, circular economy is pretty essential to achieve a more sustainable future. But at the same time, it's also a driver for more economic growth and innovation. And you will hear this evening of a number of speakers and panelists who can actually take us on that journey of how they got to a circular economy path, both in Victoria and in the Netherlands, but also some businesses that have created innovative products and services that have been on that path, but also that have worked across the border, so collaborated across Australia and Victoria. So this is also an event that helps you to better connect and collaborate across borders and inspire you to maybe also trade and export in the future. Let me then introduce our first speaker and partner of this event. It's Pamela Waring. She's a senior regional manager of Global Victoria. Pamela is in the engagement team, global engagement team in Global Victoria, and she works with businesses across the Americas and Europe. Pamela, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mariella, for the kind introduction. And you might be wondering why is someone with an Americas title standing here at a Dutch Chamber event. But I did actually initially start when the Global Victoria Trade Alliance program started. I was covering both Americas and UK Europe. So I'm just standing in for our colleague, many of you who will know, Paul O'Hagan, who is our Senior Regional Manager for UK, Europe and Israel and is currently overseas. So unfortunately couldn't be here this evening. On behalf of the Victorian Government, I'd really like to welcome you to our event tonight. And this is taking place at our International Chamber House, which is it's a space that's dedicated to enhancing trade and bilateral relations with our key partners. So it's exciting to be able to host it in this space tonight. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians on the land in which we are meeting this evening. So the Wurundjeri, I always say that one wrong, sorry. Apologies to any First Nations people in the room, of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I'd also like to acknowledge members of the Consular Corps and diplomatic community joining us this evening, and in particular Richard Mendelsohn, our Dutch Honorary Consul. Thank you. So just for those that don't know, I think it's sort of been mentioned, but anyways, Global Victoria is the Victorian Government's trade facilitation agency. So we really serve as a gateway for Victorian businesses to engage with global markets. We have the largest international footprint of any state or territory in Australia, with 23 offices around the world. It's a really exciting time for us in terms of Victoria's relationship with the Netherlands and Europe. We've just recently opened a new office. Unfortunately, it's not in Amsterdam or in the Netherlands, but it's in Paris. But it is there to expand our footprint and our activities and the strong trade and investment links that we're seeing and that are growing between Victoria and Europe. And many of you may know our former CEO of Global Victoria, Ganu Serbest. She has just arrived in Paris as our new Commissioner for Europe at that office. So we're really excited to have her over there and leading the charge. She is full of energy and inspiration and will be a huge asset to the team over there. Through this global network and our activities here in Victoria, we really try to build the export skills and knowledge for Victorian businesses to succeed internationally. The other really exciting thing happening in the Europe relationship as well is we're really looking forward to the successful conclusion of the ongoing negotiations for a free trade agreement between Australia and the European Union, which hopefully not too far away. And as you will all know, Victoria enjoys a really deep and long-lasting economic relationship with the Netherlands. The Netherlands is Victoria's second largest export market in the EU after Germany, and Victoria is home to the largest Dutch-born population in Australia. So our relationship is dynamic. It crosses so many sectors, and in particular for this evening, the circular economy and waste management. Mariella did mention that tonight is part of the Global Victoria Trade Alliance, and it's exciting to have had, and we're very proud to have the Netherlands Chamber as a partner for this program. It's really been a huge asset I think it's probably been over the last 18 months now since we started the program, in terms of a really critical program that's helping our Victorian companies export to new markets, learn about new markets, and pivot to new opportunities. I'd like to thank Mariella and Helene and all the other board members of the Chamber that I can see here this evening, and also the wonderful events team that's brought this amazing setup together. And just really acknowledging the really important role that the Chamber plays in promoting and supporting trade and investment between Australia and the Netherlands. So really excited to learn more about the Dutch leadership in the circular economy and waste management, the experiences of our Victorian and Dutch speakers, sharing their insights and expertise, and how we can really grow our opportunities for trade and collaboration. So I'll leave it there. Thank you much, Mariella.
Yeah, thank you, Pamela, for your support and partnering with the Dutch Chamber. It's been a great journey so far, and we still have a few events to go. We have two speakers presenting first the Victorian perspective, that's Brad Lemon, and the Dutch perspective. We're starting with Brett. Brett is the executive officer of the Victorian Waste Management Association. It's a not-for-profit membership organization, and it helps its members, and it's both not-for-profits and businesses, with behaving responsibly, adhering, complying with the legislation, but also to lobby for those organizations on issues that matter to them. Brett, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me. So I also would like to just acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, and I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people from other communities here today. So I'm going to go, we're covering quite a lot in a short amount of time. So I'll be brief, but we can talk about it all a bit later in a bit more detail. So the VWMA, or the Victorian Waste Management Association, basically is the representative body between industry and government. So we do all the advocacy work from industry back up to government, and we also help educate the industry, promote best practice throughout, not just Australia, but throughout globally as well. We try to punch above our weight as much as we can. So we're going to talk briefly about the circular economy, and here's a quote from another fellow Victorian. So the circular economy is not a waste strategy, it's an economic policy and a roadmap to accelerate our transition to a clean economy. So Victoria, and more broadly Australia, has been on its waste reduction journey for a fair while now. It's been going for many years, and there's plenty of opportunity, which we're not going to cover all of them in 10 minutes. But one thing that we really need to get across, not only to the people in this room, but society in general, that we need to do a true circular rethink about everything we do, all the products that we buy, and what we do with them afterwards. So realising that every bit of waste is a valuable resource, and we need to design products with the idea of what happens next after it's been consumed. Where does it go? Then where does it go? Making it a truly circular product. And as consumers, we need to make sure that we're purchasing and reusing those products in the way that they've been designed. And we also need to make sure that that product life that we're designing everything around is actually recyclable here in Australia. There's plenty of products that are recyclable in Europe or America. We don't have the infrastructure here. So when you are planning your purchasing, just look into what we actually have available to us in Victoria and Australia more broadly. But it's really talking about that product circle of life, and that's really important with every purchase you make as a business and as a citizen. Everything you do has an impact. So talking about recycling, recycling we've got on the screens here is the waste hierarchy. So everyone talks a lot about recycling. Recycling is really in the middle of where we should be aiming. We really should be looking at avoidance and reduction and reusing. So those products that we're buying, can they be reused rather than recycled? So just having that rethink of what are we doing, what are we buying, how are we using it? And there's a lot of responsibility on producers and manufacturers as well as consumers, because at the end of the day, the recyclers are the ones that are dealing with your poor decisions because you've made it halfway down the waste hierarchy rather than staying at the top. So Victoria as a whole, we produce around 16 million tonnes of waste a year. So it's not terrible. We divert around about 70.7% of that from landfill. Now bear in mind, this is the number that the Victorian State Government have been flashing around. That includes construction waste, which has a very high recovery rate. When you start talking about curbside collections from households, that diversion rate diminishes significantly. But that also means that there's a huge opportunity in Victoria and Australia more broadly. 84% of the plastics that we buy as consumers ends up in landfill, just as an example. That's nowhere near 70% diversion. So as a nation, we produce around about 80 million tonnes of waste a year, and roughly as a nation, 50% of that gets recycled. So as Victoria, we're better than average, but we're not perfect. touching on the Circular Economy Act. So for those that don't know, late last year Victoria passed an act in Parliament called the Circular Economy Act. Basically what this does is creates the framework, or that legal framework, for the circular economy within Victoria. So it really creates the benchmark that legislation as well as businesses can work within that framework to really drive that circular economy. You will notice though that the image I've used is not truly circular, and it comes back to the fact that we don't have all the answers when it comes to the products. So it goes back to my earlier comment about the things that you buy, consume, produce, manufacture, thinking about what is its end of life. How does its end of life look where I am? And inevitably there's always going to be a small residue that can't be reused, recycled, etc. So whether that goes to landfill, whether that goes for incineration, waste to energy, things like that, there's options there, but it's just about thinking about that in, I guess, a more realistic sort of view. Ideally, everything has a reuse or can be recycled. I won't bother talking about the export ban. I will skip ahead to the Circular Economy Business Innovation Centre, or CBIC. So this is a division of Recycling Victoria. So for those that are looking to start up a circular economy business in Victoria, or already have a circular economy business in Victoria, this is the team that is going to help drive your innovation, whether it's getting funding, whether it's connecting you with other people in industry. There's a whole team at Sustainability Victoria that are there for businesses to help accelerate our pathway to a circular economy. There's some very smart people that are working in that team. So they haven't been working for very long. It's basically been 18 months, or might have crept over 2 years now. My slides, it's back again. So currently they've helped fund over 160 projects. They've created 680 jobs. So you're looking around $320 million of investment. So it's not a tiny amount of money. And they've added about 1 million tonnes of new recycling capacity. But there's still so much more to be done. But they're absolutely an asset that you can use from the state government. Speaking of government, waste industry in Victoria is pretty heavily regulated from a state level and a federal level. So if you are looking to start in Victoria with a circular economy business, it's important to understand the regulators and where they sit in that hierarchy. So I'm not going to delve into all of these, but happy to have a chat, have some questions later on. But there's just a couple of them on the screen there. In Victoria, we also recently passed the Environmental Protection Act. It's important to understand this. It does say Environmental Protection Act 2017. It was actually implemented 2021, just to avoid confusion. But one of the reasons why it was it needed to be changed and updated, because it was in the 70s when it was created. So mind frames in Australia in the 70s were very different to today. But this is quote there on the screen. We've always done it this way. It just doesn't cut it when it comes to recycling anymore. One of the big changes for the Act is the introduction of the general environmental duty, and basically it's every citizen of Victoria, not just corporate citizen, but everybody in Victoria has a general duty to reduce the risk of harm from your activities to the environment. And this goes throughout all of the regulations. I think it's fantastic. It makes people stop and think. It also gives the regulators, I guess, a bit more teeth into what they can go after polluters for. But it's important to understand that, because everything you're doing in your business, you need to think about that. How am I reducing my risk? How are my activities impacting the environment, and how can I reduce that risk? Which comes to the state of knowledge. So there's plenty of guidelines and articles currently out by the EPA. We're currently working with the EPA to update a whole lot more of them. But it's important to basically utilise the EPA's resources, plagiarise them, or you can come and talk to me and I can navigate you through their horrible search engine. So, conscious of time, so that's the end of my discussion now, but I'm very happy to take questions afterwards on the panel, because there's such a huge opportunity within Victoria currently for circular economy businesses. We have a lack of infrastructure, we have a massive waste problem, but at the same time we have a legislative framework that is ready to go. We are ready to take investors in. We are ready to expand. Industry has been pushing this for years. Government's ready. We've got the CBIC with investment dollars waiting to go. So there's really not a better time to get started in the circular economy within Victoria. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Brett, and especially for the very encouraging last words. I think we need a little bit of that. I'd like to now turn to our other keynote speaker, and that's Bert Keesman. And Bert is he wears many hats. He's by the way, he's online. He dials in from Weesp, which is a small place near Amsterdam. And Bert is director of Metasus, and he's also, and the main reason why he's here is he's the lead of a program called Waste Business Australia and Netherlands. In short, it's Waste BAM, or Waste Ben rather. It's a great segue into what he's doing around bringing companies together and helping them in that journey to reduce waste. And he's also been to Australia before. He was here last year during the Waste Expo, brought a lot of companies together and with him, and is looking for partnerships for those companies as well. And a number of them are also speakers on our panel. I'll hand the floor to Bert. Bert, can you hear us, and are you able to take the floor? I can't see you.
Yes, I hope that you can all hear me.
Perfect, yes.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm very pleased to be with you this evening, actually. Over here, it's a sunny morning in Weesp near Amsterdam. Very happy to be a part of this event. Thank you very much, Brett, for your introduction. And let me introduce myself very briefly. I have my company Metasus. I'm into the promotion of exports and international cooperation in environmental technology. Also, I'm the chairman of an expert group on waste and environmental technologies, which is part of the Water Alliance, which sounds a little strange, and I can explain that later. And also, I'm a special envoy to the so-called Holland Circular Hotspot, which is an organization that disseminates information on the way that the Netherlands is trying to reach a circular economy by 2050. A very short introduction of the Netherlands. Well, you've seen the video already. We are a country which is extremely small, only 60% of Tasmania, if you can imagine. We have 342 municipalities, each dealing with waste in their own way, which sparks a lot of innovation, of course. We produce 60 million tons of waste per year. Almost 10 million of that is municipal waste. And geographically, we're at the end of 3 main rivers in Europe, and also we have a country which is 26% below sea level, which has always caused certain problems with the water. We have always had to cooperate to keep the water out. I have a brief overview of how we have dealt with waste in over the years, the first year being 1875. I don't want to get too deeply into this, but in general, the focus has shifted over the years, starting from public health and now with the circular economy focus. And also the scale at which we have dealt with waste has widened now on a national level, with also a strong regulatory influence of the European Union. And on the other hand, one very important aspect is that around 1990, we had like a waste crisis in the Netherlands. And we started to cooperate between all levels of government and also involving stakeholders of all kinds. And that has basically laid the groundwork for our waste management system today. To show some focuses, well, Brett has already talked about the waste hierarchy, which is depicted here during our visit in last year in October to the Smart Resources Group in Melbourne. Now, of course, Ward Peterbridge has to redesign this painting into the 10 R's of the circular economy, which are in the picture also, because more and more we are shifting towards that approach. And of course, recycling has lowered a little bit on that ladder. But the waste hierarchy is an important element. Then the planning at national level. Also, we have strict waste treatment standards. We have a ban on landfill for 45 waste streams, which has, of course, tremendously helped to keep that kind of waste out of the landfills and reduce landfilling. And standards for soil protection from landfilling have helped, and also air quality standards from incineration. Which has helped actually to make waste incineration acceptable to the general public, because at the beginning we had big problems with that. Some other important instruments, one is extended producer responsibility for all kinds of recyclables. For instance, for packaging materials, we have a system. We actually, 1st of April, we introduced a deposit return system on aluminum cans, 15 cents of a euro per can. But also we're working at this moment on an EPR system for textiles, to name something. So on the one hand, it helps tremendously to promote waste separation at source, of course. And on the other hand, it also introduces new financial sources into the waste management system. Then instruments to promote prevention and recycling. We have economic incentives, for instance, pay-as-you-throw systems for households. Reversed collection, that is making collection for recyclables a lot easier and for non-recyclables a lot more difficult. And we have a landfill tax, which also has spectacularly helped to reduce landfilling. Then we have a restrictive planning for waste to energy capacity. However, we do have 12 waste incinerators in the country and 1 for hospital waste. So that does play quite a role here. Then we have, of course, the separate collection of recyclable household waste, also through the so-called household waste recovery centers for bulky waste. We have a municipal waste tax that covers all costs of waste management. Awareness raising campaigns, of course, and enforcement of legislation. We have kind of a waste police, even opening up waste bags to see who put the wrong waste at the wrong place. Then what is the result of all that? The state of play, 61% of municipal waste nowadays is recycled, 36% is incinerated with energy recovery, and only 2 to 3% is landfilled. So that's quite a change compared to several decades ago. However, household waste production remains high, about 500 kilos per person per year, and we want to lower that, obviously. The separated waste is still of insufficient quality, and 40% of the household waste cannot be recovered as a material. So actually the stage that the Netherlands is in is very interesting, because what we are becoming aware of at the moment is waste management is not going to help us take the next step. We have to get into the circular economy. So we have designed a national circular economy program, and in 2050 we want to be fully circular. And by 2030, that is only in 7 years, we want to use 50% less raw material. And frankly, that is going to be a huge challenge. We have a transition agenda to reach the circular economy for 5 priority sectors. That is biomass and food, plastics, the manufacturing industry, the construction sector, and consumer goods. So we have specific programs which are supposed to lead to a circular economy in those specific important sectors for the Dutch economy. So as Mariella already pointed out, we are actively interested to cooperate with Australia and to do business with partners in Australia to jointly work towards good waste management and the circular economy. And so we have this program, which is called the Partners for International Business Program. And it's 6 companies working together, presenting themselves in Australia and seeing whether they can do business there. And I have depicted them in this graph. So at the waste logistics end, you see Gisela Bakker, and they are into waste logistics equipment, for instance, the grapples and all kinds of hydraulic equipment. Then we get to the waste treatment stage, and we have Adverio, which is into waste digestion and composting. Dry Cake is into the deep packaging machines for organic waste. NM Heilig is into all kinds of waste separation and waste recycling installations. Fast Feed Grinded is actually a daughter company of NM Heilig, and they are into a very specific field, which is shoe recycling. Very innovative, by the way. And then we have Hofstetter, active in all kinds of gas treatment installations. And in this case, especially the gas from landfills. They do the flaring and also, if possible, the conversion of the gas into usable gas. We have the Dutch Power Group, on the one hand in thermal waste treatment, but also more widely all kinds of waste systems. And then we have Blue Phoenix, and Blue Phoenix is into the treatment of incinerator bottom ashes, and already active in Australia. And actually we will have a presentation by Blue Phoenix. What are we going to do in the next years? That is, we will have trade missions. For instance, we will be in Perth, 11 to 15 September. We will participate in all kinds of events. And also we will have an incoming mission for the 22nd till the 26th of May, which is then coming up. That is basically my presentation. There's more information on our specific website, the URL you see here. And we have a LinkedIn group where we can share opportunities and exchange knowledge. Thank you very much. A big pleasure.
Thank you, Bert. That was very insightful, the Dutch journey compared to the Victorian one. And well done on bringing the waste ban together, and look forward to seeing you here in person. We're now moving to the panel session. We'll have the speakers, Bert and Brett, as part of it, and Brett will actually be moderating as well. And we have 3 other industry representatives that I'm going to introduce to you. First of all, we have Erica. Erica is seated here at the front, and Erica Hughes is the commercial director of Integra Systems, based here in the north of Melbourne. She runs the company together with her partner, so it's a real family business. And Integra is an Australian design, engineering, and Industry 4.0 advanced manufacturing company. And what they've done is use Dutch technology to fabricate modular waste bins. So it's a great story of a collaboration. Then let me introduce the other panelists who are with us online. First we have Ian. Ian was already mentioned because Ian is General Manager of Blue Phoenix Group, Asia and Australia. And Ian is at the moment, he would normally be in Perth, but he's in Rotterdam where Blue Phoenix is headquartered. So good reason. And Ian's journey has been quite phenomenal. He set up and led the operations of an Australian first processing plant, which processes bottom ashes or incinerated bottom ashes. And he does that produced from Australia's first energy from waste facility. So there are a few firsts there. And Ian has done so on his own during COVID time, but in collaboration and using the knowledge of the Netherlands and Europe. Then the last speaker is Jan-Jaap Volmer, and Jan-Jaap is an entrepreneur with lots of hats as well, and with a real focus on impact. He's the founder of Upcycling Plastics, and this company supports communities, cities, as well as companies to close their plastic waste loop. And he's been trialing an Australian technology in this case, and I'm sure the owners of the technology are here in the room with us as well. And he's trialing that in plants in the Eemshaven in the north of the Netherlands, but also in other parts. And it's scaling it up, the technology. So very exciting. It's a startup, Australian technology in the Netherlands. So we can see here a flow between the countries going on. So let me, without further ado, let Brett moderate this fantastic panel and get more out of how those companies have gone on their journey and how it is to do business across.
Fantastic, thank you. So just to kick off the panel, I thought I would let, everyone's heard from me and Bert already, so I thought I would let the other panellists just have a quick 30-second elevator pitch so they can introduce themselves and sort of what they do. So I'm going to kick off with Erica first, because you're here.
Thanks, Brett. So we're, as was explained, we're a company that specialises in manufacturing of light metal products. And we're discovered by Brink Industrial, which is using the brand Loon for their waste bin systems. And Brink Industrial and Loon had designed a modular waste bin system that has a cradle-to-cradle approach to the circular economy. And so it's not only is it separation at the source, but it has a cradle-to-cradle approach to the whole product. And they came to us back in 2019, just before COVID. We started our discussions and conversations with them about manufacturing here in Victoria. So there's twofold opportunity. It was the link between the Netherlands bringing their products to Australia with a digital licence. So you've obviously got that reduction in emissions and importing the product, but also giving the Victorian Australia an opportunity to boost and elevate the waste management and cradle-to-cradle approach to separation at the source through modular bin systems. So our relationship started in 2019, and we signed an agreement in 2020 with the Dutch Embassy being a major contributor to facilitating that relationship. And so that's how we have established that one.
Beautiful. Thanks, Erica. Ian, seeing as you're on my screen, you can be first up from our online participants.
Excellent, thanks very much. Look, Ian Linus, I represent Blue Phoenix Group, which is a company that's known well around the world for its singular focus on treating incinerated bottom ash and the recovery and repatriation of metals and minerals that's existent in that material. We have, over the course of the last 4 years, developed and captured a market in Australia, working with the first energy from waste plants in Western Australia and now across the country, and have recently constructed and commissioned the first incinerator bottom ash treatment facility, which sits in Kwinana in Perth, Western Australia. The company is headquartered out of Rotterdam. We have operations right throughout Europe and throughout the UK. And we are the front runner and leader of regulation and pathways for reuse of the minerals or aggregates that are resident in the ash that we recycle and reuse into particularly road base throughout UK and Europe. As I said, we've been about a 4-year journey. Spent a lot of time with the regulators around Australia and with the industry as people come to terms with trying to understand incinerated bottom ash, as we've not generated this material before. But it's interesting for everyone to know about 98% of the material that we recover goes into road base currently throughout the world, and hopefully soon into Australia. But that's Blue Phoenix.
Yep. Fantastic. Thanks, Ian. And Jan Jaap?
Good afternoon, Australia. My name is Jan Jaap Volmer. I'm the founder and chief of Upcycling Plastic, a company founded 6 years ago to help, as Mariella already said, regions, cities and companies to close their plastic waste loop. And we focus on building regional circular ecosystems and trying to set up projects within regions to do so. 3-4 years ago, we came into touch with an Australian company called Plastec Recycling Limited, and they have a fantastic technology on which the founders of this company can tell you much more. They are in the audience in Victoria, in Melbourne. So, that technology enables us to process difficult to recycle plastic waste, mixed plastic waste, into building materials, planks and poles, and that is what we actually locally source, the plastic waste, and we locally manufacture that into planks and poles for local offtake. And we also offer end of life and end of use solutions for the products we make. We're active in Indonesia and the Netherlands. In Indonesia, we're preparing the setup of a factory, and in the Netherlands, we have a test and demo site together with Plastec Recycling Limited in the northern part of the Netherlands, and planning to scale up to a demo factory where we do exactly what I described just now.
Fantastic. Thank you. So as you can see, we've got a panel that's quite diverse, coming from very different aspects of the circular economy and recycling industry. So these questions, they can go in all sorts of directions. So I'm going to start with Erica, because you're here, so you'll be easy to control. Why did you enter the circular economy? What was the opportunity, or what was the ethos behind becoming a circular business?
So as a business, we've actually been operating in a circular fashion from day one, and it was never called a circular economy. It was called all sorts of different names: design for manufacture, waste minimisation, lean. But what we were doing was we were truly designing out waste. So we were, right from the very beginning, we would critically assess a product or a design, and we would be designing out waste where possible from every angle. So right through from where the product was being manufactured to how it was being assembled on site, and then how the end of life was treated. And we've been talking about this for a really long time. It took a long time to catch on, but we attracted like-minded businesses, and so we sort of developed a bit of a relationship and network with various companies throughout Australia. And Steve Morris from Close the Loop, I'm not sure if anybody's heard of Steve from Close the Loop. He happened to be part of a Dutch mission, and he's the one who actually did the initial introduction through the Dutch embassy to WEDO, because we were very like-minded. They have a circular economy focus, we have a circular economy focus, and they were looking for a partner here in Australia, and so that gave us the opportunity to link up, and our value system is identical. So we made that. It was a really good relationship that we formed. But the circular economy for us has always been a key philosophy to how we do business and how we manage our design and our manufacturing. And there's not very many manufacturers that have that, contract manufacturers that have that product development and design front end. And then you don't get very many who actually design out waste and design in circularity as part of the philosophy for products. And our specialty is in light metal products. So their relationship with Brink was perfect.
Yep.
Collaboration on that front, because they are also manufacturers of light metal products.
Yep, absolutely.
So the circular economy is absolutely critical right from the very beginning. So it's the design stage that's important.
No, absolutely. I think that's one of the key things in the circular economy is really that design phase, because if it's designed at the front end correctly, when it comes to the back end to be recycled, it's actually been designed to be recycled, reused and things like that. So
we're very excited when it was given a name.
Yeah.
Because now people can understand what we do.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Yeah, fantastic. Bert, I'm going to throw to you for the next question before I throw to the audience for the next question. Obviously, you're doing a lot of fantastic work over there in the Netherlands. So how did Australia come up as an opportunity for circular economy?
Yes, thank you. There's been a lot of preparatory work for that, and actually the embassy has been fantastic in that. One thing it started off with is a visit of our Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, to Australia, and there was already an agreement signed on waste management and the circular economy, also involving the so-called Holland Circular Hotspot. And then the embassy did a lot of investigation, research about the situation regarding waste management and the circular economy, and noted that on the one hand there are quite some challenges, also because of the Chinese sword, of course, and some other issues. And on the other hand, there appears to be a willingness to invest in better waste management and also the circular economy. And you see that on a federal level and also on the levels of the states. So combining all that, it was possible to get a group of companies together in spite of the undeniable distance between our countries, but to get a group of companies together and enthusiastic to explore business opportunities with Australia.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think Victoria is probably one of the more progressive as a whole when it comes to the circular economy compared to some of our other states. Not that I'm biased at all. So were there any online questions? Who's moderating online? No. Nothing online? Beautiful. Anyone in the audience have a question for any of the panellists just yet?
I have a question for you, Brett.
Okay, be gentle.
We, when we were at Waste Expo last year, so
yes.
we were exhibiting there, we had a representative from Sustainability Victoria come to speak to us, and they were indicating that legislation was coming in that separation at the source was going to become mandatory in Victoria in the office environment. Is that something that is, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so in Victoria we had an election at the end of last year, which meant we had an environmental minister change. So it's still the same government, but we've got a new minister. And there's quite a lot of initiatives that are currently sitting there waiting for sign-off. So we've got things in Victoria, so they're rolling out a bin standard, so bin content standards and things like that, which basically means standardising what goes in each of our particular bins. So there's a lot of projects that are waiting on that particular piece of work to come out, because it will offshoot from that. That'll be the core announcement and education piece, and from that, everything else will stem. So we were expecting it around about October last year, before the election. Didn't quite come out that early. So it's definitely still sitting there in the background, and I would expect that to be rolled out probably the second half of this year or thereabouts. But yeah,
So it
absolutely.
is expected that it will become mandatory
Yes.
very soon.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's your answer.
Beautiful. Any others? No. Beautiful. Oh, sorry. No. Okay. Fantastic. Ian, I'm going to ask you the next question. So obviously starting up in Australia, and in what is probably, I don't think some people in the room will understand that bottom ash is a hard thing to get through with the various state EPAs and can be quite limiting on how they'll enable you to transport that and recycle that. So how did you get started with that bottom ash, and what were some of the challenges you faced?
Look, good question. Look, I think the core aspects, maybe I'll start from the beginning of the process. Providing information, education and knowledge around bottom ash and its applicable opportunity for use and recovery is where the journey started. Getting around Australia and talking to all of the agencies and departments and potential customers about what bottom ash actually consisted of. It typically started with waste as a dirty word, and we really it's a tough thing to talk about. But as we started that journey, the story of collaboration for us is pretty centric to circular economic outcomes right around the globe. But in Australia in particular, we started the journey just prior to COVID hitting. We had a construction program well underway and working with the first plant in Australia. And interestingly, for everyone in the audience, we had 23 suppliers and partners that were based in the Netherlands that we had to find a way to communicate across borders, across cultures, across language barriers, across technical barriers. And that meant a lot of very open dialogue and letting go of regional or ingrained parochial behaviours or egos to allow us to be able to build and construct and fluidly design a facility that would do two things. One, process incinerated bottom ash and treat incinerated bottom ash aggregate, but also do it with a low impact on energy use, water use, and a low impact on waste materials. Successfully, that was achieved through as I said, very open and very dynamic collaboration, all by phone and video, with Australian contractors and design engineers working with our teammates in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, to bring about a result in Australia that is unique and I haven't seen in 30 years of career in Australia for a long, long time. But if you look at the challenges of putting incinerated bottom ash, which is the product that remains after we remove about 14 to 15% of metal content from the waste stream coming out of an incinerator, and the aggregates are typically residual there: concrete, brick, tile, hard plastics, glass, etc. And as we remove the metal content and remove organics and unburns, we end up with a circular product that is highly cementitious and well regarded in the civil industry application for roads or non-structural and structural concrete products or concrete buildings. But as I said, the majority of the product is always targeted at road base because it provides a very stable footprint across roads. And for interest's sake, for those that aren't aware, if you go to London and drive the M25 ring road, you may be interested to note that a considerable portion of that road is built on the top of incinerated bottom ash aggregates. And Blue Phoenix is starting its journey, if you like, in collaboration, I get to the nth degree, is a collaboration of two organisations, a company that used to be known as Ballast Phoenix in the UK, that was an aggregate recycler, and a technology that was developed at the Delft University in the Netherlands, where a company by the name of Anashco was created to leverage and develop that technology for the use in the specific treatment of incinerated bottom ash and the liberation of minerals and metals. Overall, and the way that I generally have approached this in Australia, people about helping the general public understand that the waste we put in our bins and the source separation we try and achieve, which we are still very much at the early stages turns into material that goes back into roads and bike paths in their local communities. So spending a lot of time sharing information and knowledge, not just with industry participants, environmental agencies, but also with schools and school children to help with a real understanding. When we talk about circular economics in Australia, it's a term that's bandied around quite considerably, yet very little is understood about what people are talking about. When we look at those products and when we take virgin materials or we take construction building sites, demolish them, change them, move them, and how do we get those materials that we throw into our bins, aluminiums, waste metals, materials, and jewellery that finds its way into the waste stream? And how do we recover that to ensure that we don't just simply put it in a landfill, which is what's been happening for the last eons, and create real live valuable products into our lives today?
Yeah, I think education in Australia is a big one. I mean, we've got generations that we need to sort of change and mould with some education and clear messaging. So I'm going to move across to Jan Jaap now. So you've taken an Australian technology over to the Netherlands, which is fantastic. I was talking to the gentleman here in the audience earlier about it. How did that collaboration come about? What was the driving force between you connecting with the Australian company?
Actually, it started off LinkedIn, I think, in 2018, when Plastec reached out to me to see whether I was interested in their technology, which they have already been testing and trying for a couple of years in Australia, but it didn't really get off the ground. I thought that this technology fitted my business concept my circular business concept quite well. And I was busy at that time in Vietnam and in Indonesia to develop it. Plastec on their side, they said, well, we see actually opportunities in Europe as well. And that opened my eyes as well, because I thought we don't have a big problem here with waste plastics, because it's clean. We don't have a lot of litter laying around. It's very limited. But diving into it here in the Netherlands, and we're one of the front runners in the circular economy, and also in recycling rates, especially of post-consumer waste as well, we do quite well. But still here, the main part of all the plastic waste in this case is actually still incinerated or exported to countries where it's incinerated or dumped somewhere in the environment. And we're talking about the majority of the waste stream, also of the plastic waste stream. If we count all the plastic waste, we have only 30% that is actually being recycled and reused again in new products, and over 70% is actually still burned for most of it and exported. So there was actually an opportunity here as well, and through LinkedIn, we had a couple of Zoom meetings and a couple of Teams meetings, and then when we started to really get into collaboration and into business, then COVID struck. So that didn't make the relationship building any easier, because from Australia you were not allowed to travel to Europe, and we were actually staying at home as well quite a lot. So we built a relationship and the business actually on Teams and on Zoom. And in a circular economy, that's not the easiest way to do, because collaboration is key in everything we do in a circular economy. Collaboration with the different stakeholders in the different parts of the supply chain. That's where the circular economy is about. And we couldn't actually sit together in a room for a couple of days to really discuss everything. But nonetheless, we did it. We had a lot of focus on developing our business. We got with some partners, and that's how we started off.
Yep. What do you think was the most difficult thing about starting up? Was it the distance? Well, I mean, COVID obviously would have had a bit to play there, but in a short, almost single sentence answer, what do you think was the most difficult?
it's actually building up this relationship with parties on the other side of the world. You're not cold for nothing down under, and that's far away, and that took a long time, and we had some time, luckily. But collaboration is with any party in a circular business model is the key, and companies often go for their own interest because they are profit driven, and everybody is it. But still in the supply chain, in the circular business, you have to collaborate. And maybe it took a little bit longer because of COVID mainly, but we also had more time. So it was on one hand difficult. On the other hand, I think we did quite well in building the relationship. And luckily last year, when we had the prototype machine up and running in the Netherlands, Peter and Colin were able to travel to the Netherlands as well, and we could spend some time together to further cement this relationship.
Oh, fantastic. Erica, what do you think was the most difficult thing?
Oh, I think definitely that one-on-one.
Yep.
Getting together and nutting out the best ways to approach the commercial models, the best way to sell, the time spending together, just sort of nurturing the relationships is definitely a tricky one, especially when you sort of got a partnership on the go there. So COVID was a really big issue for us because offices were empty. We couldn't sell our products. So it was a pretty slow start. So we really we sort of really were able to kick off the relationship and also the commercial side of it last year when we had the Waste Expo. And the Netherlands had a trade mission to Melbourne, and Martin came over and was able to spend a week with us working together, and that's when we really started to generate some momentum and get real conversations going with customers, and get that sort of sales training as well on the product and working through the manufacturing processes. So COVID was a huge issue for us, and then the tyranny of distance, of course. But it's since we've had that one-on-one contact, it's just it's much easier now to have any kind of a conversation. It's just by text. Whereas before it was a bit more formal. So it's good.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that also highlights the importance of things like the trade missions that Global Victoria and even Bert's doing from over there. It's a really fantastic opportunity to network. I think the Waste Expo last year was fantastic. I lost my voice from talking too much, basically.
It's really good.
It was a fantastic event, and I would encourage anyone to go to that event and really make the most of that networking opportunity, whether you have a stand or you're just there. I find that the Victorian waste industry, especially compared to some of the other states, is very open. They're very open and willing to chat. They're willing to hear about what your ideas are, what your technology is. And they're really good at networking. They're really good. They might not be interested in your product, but they go, oh, but maybe Paul is, or maybe Erica is. So they'll put the connections through. And I think that's one of the really fantastic aspects about the circular economy and just the waste industry in Victoria, especially. It really is a strong network of individuals and corporations that make up what is a pretty active group in this sort of area. Any questions online?
No, still not.
Can I just piggyback what you were saying there about the Waste Expo? So when Martin was over, it's interesting because it was about 10, 12 years ago, or a bit longer, that they started the loon bin manufacturing, sales marketing and manufacturing, and they started to get some really good leverage in their market through the very first expo that they had, which was similar to Waste. And Martin's observations were, because he's been there since the beginning, that the Waste Expo, the vibe at the Waste Expo was almost identical, and that the language that was being spoken and the attitudes was almost identical to how it was, say, 10 years ago in the Netherlands. And so he was really excited because you could see where the Netherlands had gone to with their waste management and all the innovations, and where Victoria particularly was potentially heading, because we talk the same language. and we've got the same strategies in place, and we're sort of learning from the Netherlands as leaders in circularity.
Yeah.
So it's the Waste Expo was a really great place to sort of get a finger on the pulse as to what's happening in our industry.
Yeah, no, definitely. And throwing back to, I'll come to you in a second, Jan. Throwing back to Bert's earlier comment of that pay-as-you-throw kind of mentality that you've got in the Netherlands. So in a previous role, when I was working for a commercial waste company, we had scales on all of our trucks, and that's pretty much what we would be drumming through to our customers was we weigh the bin. So we pay per tonne, whether it's going to landfill, to paper recycle, plastic recycle, whatever. So we've got to pay per tonne to get rid of it, to recycle it, etc. So therefore, rather than bins being per flip, they should be on weight. So, and that's what we started introducing to our customers was a pay-as-you-go, and that really opened their eyes as to how much that they were throwing away, and it really showed that where they could make differences and changes quite easily. So Jan, you put your hand up for a question?
Yes, I was just linking on to your networking opportunities, etc. And I was just talking about the biggest challenges in building up the relationship. I think also the biggest opportunity in which you can find them in really these relationships and networks and working together. If you do that in the right way and you are working in the right networks, and Bet will definitely confirm that as well, you can do so much more together than what you can do on your own. And I think there's a huge opportunity also probably in this room and with the trade fairs as well upcoming to build relationships and to grab those opportunities.
Yep. No, absolutely, which leading into Bert, what do you see as some of the strongest opportunities between the two countries at the moment?
Yes, thank you. We've seen some great opportunities already. You know, I'm involved in several of those programs. For instance, at this moment in Indonesia also. And but what is of course evident in the case of Australia is that it can go two ways, and we've seen that today, which is fantastic. So on the one hand, the Netherlands can inspire Australia, but it can go the other way about also. So in that sense, the opportunities are double. You know, and there was an interesting case just a few weeks ago where somebody asked from Australia about diaper recycling, and well, frankly, we've had some attempts to get a profitable diaper recycling. From a technology point of view, it's possible, but from a profitability point of view, it's still a challenge. So what I propose there is that because there's definitely some people interested in setting this up in the Netherlands. So what I proposed was why not establish in a parallel way a diaper recycling facility in the Netherlands and also in Australia, same one. Wouldn't that be a great feat, a great achievement of our two countries together? Now this is just an example, and I don't know whether it will ever happen, but it shows that we are a little bit on the same level of development, and I think the opportunities are almost limitless of what we can do together. So let's get into that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think diaper recycling, is a prime candidate for a product stewardship type model where user pays effectively. When you similar to the bottle scheme, might be 10 cents an extra on a packet, and that helps to fund that recycling model, so it is free for drop off for everyone in that area. We have a question.
I was just going to ask Colin Barker to ask a question of Bert actually, and this Jan Yap might have a comment as well. But with regard to the diaper recycling, there were some endeavours, I don't know whether you're aware of them, in Australia going back a few years. And the issue was getting the superabsorbent polymer, which is useful in agriculture and all those sort of things, no problem. The actual soil, once that's stripped clean with water, that was able to be treated in a normal sewage or wastewater treatment situation. And the issue was the plastics, actually, largely. And I just want to refer you to Jan Yap. He likes plastics dry, but mixed plastics, I'm sure there could be some good conversations. But the issue in Australia related to plastics, which we believe is now well on the way. Your comment?
Peter Barker from Plastec Recycling as well. In addition to what Colin just said, that the remnants of the diapers is I guess it's a new form of plastic waste, or you're looking for something to a use for a product that no one has found before. One of the things that we discovered when dealing with Jan Yap was that they have a particular interest in the Netherlands on textiles, the waste textiles, and many of the textiles that are out and about are polymer based. And so one of the things that got us together was that difficult waste streams that could be treated with plastic. And just a general comment for our experience in an Australian company dealing with a Dutch company is that we're very grateful that Jan Yap and our other partners' English is much better than our Dutch, which allowed for a very, very easy and fruitful discussion when we felt and knew that we were understood. Some of our terminology we had to explain, but we quickly found that we had so much more in common than what we had that was different. So from senses of humour, sport, and general passion for what we're doing. So it's been a very positive experience for us.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's a good segue to Ian. So you're currently over there. How are you finding? Is there a language barrier in your experience?
Look, I would have to say initially it's probably a language barrier from my side. Generally, I speak Australian instead of English. I think the tolerance of difference is well understood. The Netherlands people and teams are well versed in dealing with multiple cultures. We found it very easy to interact and work together. The development of the relationships were far greater and more difficult to put in place early. But developing a way to communicate and understanding the differences in language in terms of syntax and phrases came about pretty quickly. The Dutch people, if anything else, are very direct, which helps very much so in the Australian culture to allow us to communicate and build relationships.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a reoccurring theme that we're hearing this evening or this morning for those over there, is that relationship building is really important for that collaboration. It really comes down to making sure that you're on the same page, figuratively speaking the same language, your goals are the same, and really working together. So I think that's probably one thing for those that are looking for that collaboration, is finding a partner that shares the same vision as you, and that's going to make the world of difference in terms of that relationship and managing that. So I am conscious of time. Are there any online questions? Beautiful, nice and quiet. There's a question up the back, just wait for a microphone.
Here it is. Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin. I'm currently the acting circular economy champion with the City of Monash. Firstly, I just wanted to say it's really inspiring to hear all the great tales and of successful collaboration between Australia and the Netherlands, as someone that's looking to actually move to the Netherlands in a couple of months to pursue a career in circular economy further. My question is for Ian. You were speaking about the biomass, and I'm just curious how durable and robust is it compared to its counterpart? And what happens to it at the end of its life cycle? Are you able to take that back and reprocess it?
Look, sure. Just for clarity, but we deal with reasonably inert products rather than biomass. The aggregates that we produce and put into road base can be recovered and recycled and reused in second and third lives, and has actually been done and achieved. So it is very durable. The material itself, if you compare it to virgin materials, the virgin aggregates that are used typically in limestone or gravels or granites for road base, IBA-A, or incinerated biomass aggregate, actually behaves very similarly, and in some cases has better strength properties over time, given the level of fines and cementitious quality. So it is distinctly similar mechanically. It's indifferent to its virgin counterparts, but can be readily reused and recovered.
Fantastic. Any other questions from the floor? No, fantastic. Well, I'll wrap up the panel, but feel free to send any questions via the email. I think all of us have shared our contact details. So if you have any further questions, feel free to sing out. And thanks everybody for their attendance, and especially those in the Netherlands for getting up early and spending their mornings with us. Thank you.
Yeah, and a big thanks from me too for all the speakers who spent their time, whether it's evening or morning, to be with us and to connect. And it's been great to hear all the stories, the impact that we're making, but also the collaboration and the opportunities that are still ahead of us. So please feel free to connect with Brett and Erica, of course, during the reception after this. But we have our online speakers that we are happily connecting as well, if you would like to. I mean, the Netherlands Chamber of Commerce Australia is the organisation here in Victoria to connect business community of Australia and the Netherlands, and in particular the Victorian business community, of course. So we don't finish here with this event. We'll continue our role after that. And I just want to give a quick plug to our next event, and this will be the final event in our event series with the Global Victorian Trade Alliance, and it will be to present our digital export guide. So it combines a lot of knowledge and sharing that we've done over the past 18 months, and tackling different sectors, including circular, but also fintech, agtech. And this will be presented by the Dutch Consul General here in Australia, as well as the CEO of Global Victoria / Invest Victoria. The two are now merged, as we all know, and we're hosting it at KPMG, which is our project partner. So watch that space, and there will be an email coming your way to invite you for this event, which will be on the 8th of June. So with having said that, I won't stand any longer between you and the networking drinks. Once again, thank you all for coming and for speaking. And up to lots more collaboration and connections across Australia and the Netherlands. Thank you.